Hi guys, and welcome to the Craft Beer Channel.
We're in Beer Mecca,
otherwise known as Santa Rosa, California. We are at Russian River's Brew Pub.
We're in happy hour.
We're in happy hour. We're drinking $3.75 pints of Pliny. And this place is absolutely incredible. The staff are amazing, the food's great, the company's great. Legends to our left and to our right. But the real legend we want to talk to is Vinnie, and we were really lucky. He is crazy busy because they're releasing Pliny the Elder next week. But he took out some time at Rate Beer Best, where we did a video. You can see that at the end of this video. But he took some time out to talk to us about Pliny, about his amazing Belgian beers, about the history of Russian River and what it's like to be a brewer in the middle of wine country.
Exactly. It takes a lot of good beer to make
good wine.
Good wine.
Yeah, you'll hear that a couple of times in the videos we've been doing here in California. But here's our chat with Vinnie, and we'll catch up with you in a bit. So we're still at Rate Beer Best. I've got some rosy cheeks going on, but I think I can just about hold it together because I'm here with Vinnie of Russian River. It's an absolute honour. Thanks so much for taking the time out and having a little chat with us. How's your day been here? Like competing with some of the best breweries in the world?
I did. Yeah, it's one of our slower beer festivals. Yeah,
right,
you know, when you got like all these great beers here. Yeah, that's good.
So we'd love to talk about Pliny. So obviously Pliny is a world famous IPA.
Yeah.
IPA now, it covers so many different things, so many different styles of it, and yet Pliny has still remained relevant while perhaps other beers have slipped away a little bit. Why do you think that is?
I mean, there was a time when the things that we do to make Pliny were very cutting edge, and I know they're not anymore. You know, I understand how these guys that are making unfiltered IPAs feel now, because there was a time when people would say, well, how can you use hop extract? That's something that only big breweries use. And now hop extract is so just accepted in making IPAs, and you know, so these guys make an unfiltered IPA. You know, it's like they're being creative and something new. So you know, that doesn't bother me at all. I made the first double IPA, my first brewery, Blind Pig, in '94. Back then, you had like Liberty Ale, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. I mean, now when the beer enthusiast thinks of those beers, they think of them as being pedestrian. Yeah. But if you think about what was going on at that time, those beers were cutting edge. And then when we came along with Blind Pig IPA and our double IPA, that was a pretty radical change. And then a few years later, we came out with, you know, with the Elder, and you know, I mean, then, like, I think back to when I started Blind Pig Brewery, and you think of all the hops that are out there now, Mosaic, Simcoe, Amarillo, you know, Equinox, I mean, these go on and on, Galaxy. When I started Blind Pig in '94, Centennial hops didn't exist. Columbus didn't exist. Yeah. Those are hops now that you just take for granted.
The big C's to go to every other.
Yeah, but really, like when we first started making beer at Blind Pig, it was Chinook, Cascade, and
keep it moving.
Yeah, I can't stop working. So things have changed in that the brewer now has all these, you know, varieties of hops to pick from. But back in the day, that didn't exist. When we started making Pliny, what was unique with Simcoe was YCR 14. That was the research number when it was under its experimental, and that was what made the beer what it was. So we had brewed with what was this experimental number, and then they gave it a name Simcoe in '99. We immediately picked it and used it in Pliny. That's the foundation of what it is. But we were using hop extract, one of the first early adopters of hop extract, to not have to add as much pellet and green matter from the pellet.
Is that for the bittering, or is that
for the bittering? Yeah, exactly. Using sugar to, which is very much an English, you know, tradition to add sugar to a beer, but we were doing it so that we could add lightness to the beer, because all the sugar would just ferment to alcohol. Unlike, malt, they would leave some residual sugar. We wanted to get the alcohol. That's like Pliny without the sugar is maybe a 6.5%, 7% alcohol beer. You add the sugar and it takes it up to 8%.
So why did you want it up at 8?
Felt right, I mean, I don't know. I always use the analogy. I saw this interview with Tom Petty years ago. And someone said, how did you become such a great songwriter? And like, you go to a Tom Petty concert, like everyone's singing every song. I think it's incredible. And he's like, I don't overthink it. I think I'm the same way with writing a beer recipe. Going back to your question, I think we really stayed true to ourselves and what it is, but we've always focused on making it better. And quality is always the cornerstone of what we do. So we have an incredible quality program. We're doing everything we can to buy the freshest, the best hops, and lower the dissolved oxygen in the bottle and the keg so it always is fresh and hoppy and not oxidative. Selling it fresh, not growing beyond our means, so that we aren't, we don't have old beer sitting on the shelf or old beer at the brewery.
I guess off the back of Pliny and a couple of other beers, beers got more and more bitter and more aromatic on sort of the citrusy kind of dank side. And now it's kind of fallen off and it's gone back down towards the fruity, lower bitterness again. Yeah. But Pliny was there at the start, it's there now. It's a very smooth beer.
It's still a hold. That's the one thing for me with some of these new IPAs that are all hopped on the backside with very little to none, no bittering hops. Hey, Jorge. That they're, to me, they lack a little. Some of them lack some bitterness, and I still like a firm, crisp bitterness in the beer, which comes from adding hops at the beginning of the boil. It's not to say that these breweries are doing anything wrong. That's just my personal preference, and to me, that's the beauty of the craft beer industry, is the ability to, that there's breweries that can do all these different things and be so different, and yet, we all are making IPAs.
But how do you feel about Pliny? I mean, I'm sure in the air at the moment around the world, there's loads of Plinies going to beer fans everywhere, being sent by friends or something like that. But you're very staunchly like drink local, and that's why
we hope so. Yeah, to keep it as local. I mean, it's why we do all that verbiage, around the bottle about drink fresh and hopefully don't age it. And we try to instill that in our customers and guests at the brewery, but also once it leaves the brewery,
we don't know where
there's not much we can do. I mean, we're at the Rate Beer Festival. That can sometimes, I think, be a deterrent for some of these rating websites, is that how did the person in Stockholm get a bottle of our beer? Someone from Korea just said, I love your beer. When are you going to bring beer to Korea or whatever country it was? And I said, we'll never. And they say, well, your beers are all ready. And I said, well, I know that. So how can we control that? And then, someone grabs it and rates it, and it may not be a perfect example of what it is. At the same time, I know our beer brings happiness to a lot of people, and that's good too.
When we first tried it, so we did exactly what you were talking about. We had a friend brought some back, so it was only about two weeks out of the brew pub when we finally got it, and it tasted absolutely sensational. But drinking at the brew pub last night was a different.
Yeah, it's even takes it to the next level.
It was.
And the brew pub. Pliny the Elder is always a week old or less. We're basically putting a new batch out every week. We roughly go through a tank a week at the pub. But we've also started to make a lot of new beers.
Well, tell me, obviously you're most famous for Vinnie, but you guys, you make a lot of Belgian, a lot of barrel-aged beers. Is that where it started? Like Vinnie was a couple of years in, right?
We actually started making sour barrel-aged beers about the same year we started making Pliny. And first started with Temptation, which was a blonde ale and Chardonnay barrels with Brettanomyces. And I wanted to take my favorite component of lambic, which is the Brett, and use it in a barrel-aged beer using local wine barrels. And then made that for a while, and still do. And then we added supplication, and then at some point, the supplication, because we were using bacteria, the room just came impregnated with the bacteria, and so then now temptation started having it just naturally. So then we started actually inoculating with it, and then eventually we did consecration, which is in cab barrels, supplications in Pinot barrels, and it's just kind of all gone from there. And now we do a spontaneous beer and a bunch of other stuff. So that was more. I mean, I come from a winemaking background, so barrels are in my DNA, and using barrels are very natural to me.
We saw it at Bear Republic recently. It was like, we know them for Race of 5, and then they take you into a back room, and you're like, all these local wine barrels. Like, obviously, that makes much more sense. Even the brewing an IPA on the West Coast, because you've got those barrels there.
We don't use any bourbon or whiskey barrels. We're 100% wine barrels, and I say that's that way because look at what we have to pull from. I mean, us and Berry Public and any other local breweries, we have 700 wineries within 50, 60 miles, from us. So I mean, we have the ultimate pick of any barrels we want.
And I guess that gives you the opportunity to, you can brew a beer specifically for a barrel, or pick a barrel specifically for a beer.
Yeah, that's why I like what I was saying. Temptation, Chardonnay, Supplications, Pinot, Consecrations, Cab. We've got some other stuff lined up for the future. A Pilsner and Sauvignon Blanc barrels, a Porter and Petit Syrah barrels. All stuff that we'll come out with regularly in the future.
And do you give the beer to the wineries and go, can you pick out what's in your wine?
You know, the winemakers more want a low alcohol session beer that they can drink during harvest.
Right.
So we make a beer called Great Beer, Great Wine. It takes a lot of great beer to make great wine. So we go out and deliver cases to all of our winemaker partners who help us with barrels every year. And that's the beer that's what they drink during harvest. You know, after a 12, 14, 16-hour day of crushing grapes and pressing, they don't want a red wine or 14. They want a sessionable beer that they can just quaff and then go back, almost like a saison. You know, the whole thing for a saison. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, and that's an actual term in the wine industry, that it takes a lot of beer to make wine, and we've added to it. It takes a lot of great beer to make great wine. But you know, there's a lot of brewers here that have been wine tasting for the last couple days, and I've sent a lot of recommendations out to brewers here. So, you know, as much as we love wine, winemakers love beer. It goes both directions.
I guess when we came over, we thought the wine might have been sort of a limiting factor on beer, but it seems like an enabler.
Yeah,
if anything.
It's definitely an enabler.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Good. Yeah.
It's been an absolute
Thank
pleasure.
you. Yeah, very nice to meet you. Thank you.
We're gonna head to the brew pub tonight.
Good.
Cheers.
Might see you there. Cheers. Thank you.
Snuck out back in the brew pub to where they still brew all of the beers, or most of the beers, the non-barrel aged beers that are on tap, that's still made here. A testament to the quality. Even the bottles that they're serving for takeaway are all in the cold store right now. Behind us we have a tank full of water for their Pilsner, so they have a different water to what they're going to use for Vinnie, because hard water is great for hops, soft water is great for lager, so that's how seriously they take it. And in these tanks are some of the world's most famous beers. In fact, next weekend, we came a week early, Pliny the Younger comes out, so somewhere in one of these tanks is Pliny the Younger, and another one will be Pliny the Elder. And all the other incredible beers that we've been drinking out front, and that Vinnie's been talking about in the interview. It's a humbling space in a way that you just think that these world famous beers are going to be huge breweries, they're going to be something really special. Just like, no, it's down to earth, just like Vinnie was. Such a down to earth, friendly guy. And his brew pub is the same as everyone else's, and you forget that the specialness is the where and the who, not necessarily the equipment they're using. What an incredible place. What a trip it's been.
So I have to say, Logan screwed up our best pizza.
What?
Yeah, I had this pizza and it has pepperoni on it.
Yeah.
And he's such a wuss that he removed the pepperoni. No, he asked the server to not deliver it with pepperoni, and I couldn't believe it. Like, you know, there's Logan Plant from Beavertown, and he's totally screwed up our best pizza. I might not let him in tonight.